Thank you. Good afternoon. This is Judge Alyssa Perez presiding over the 210th District Court criminal docket for May 17, 2022. All matters being heard today are being heard in accordance with all emergency orders and directives regarding COVID-19. In addition to that, we are streaming all matters live via YouTube for public viewing. Go ahead and call it. Calling cause number 2020-0D01993, State of Texas versus Richard Adrian Williams. May I have announcements, please?
Kent Sutton for the state. Ready, Your Honor.
Daniel Gonzalez, we have Mr. Williams ready.
And Mr. Williams is appearing from the police center. Mr. Gonzalez, do you recognize your client?
Yes, I do, Your Honor.
Okay, Mr. Williams, I'm going to be asking you questions regarding your plea today, so I need to swear you in. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, perfect, and I can hear you just fine. Would you raise your right hand, please? Sir, do you swear or affirm that any testimony you provide will be the truth and the whole truth?
Yes.
Thank you. You can put your hand down. Sir, would you state your name and date of birth for the record?
Richard Adrian Williams, August 28, 1981.
Mr. Williams, as I mentioned, I'm going to ask you some questions regarding your plea today. I'm going to ask you about documents you may have reviewed with your attorney, the first of which is marked as State's Exhibit Number 1. Those are the plea papers in this case. Within that document, you're guaranteed certain rights, including the right to remain silent, the right to trial by jury, the right to counsel, the right to confront and cross-examine witnesses, and the right to call witnesses on your behalf and in your defense. Mr. Williams, do you recall reviewing States 1 with your attorney and signing that document?
Yes.
Did you understand everything contained within that document?
Yes.
Mr. Gonzalez, have you had more than 10 days to prepare a defense in this case?
Yes, Your Honor.
And did you explain the plea papers to your client?
I did, Your Honor.
Do you believe he has understood the admonishments, rights, and consequences of giving up these rights by entering his plea today?
He does, Your Honor.
Mr. Williams, are you satisfied with your attorney's representation of you?
Yes.
Mr. Gonzalez, do you have any reason to believe your client is not presently competent to enter his plea?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Williams, have you ever been found incompetent by any court?
No.
Ever been examined by a doctor or psychiatrist who has found you mentally ill?
No.
So based on your testimony, your attorney's representations, and my observations of you, I'm going to find that you are competent to enter your plea. So are you a U.S. citizen?
Yes.
Where were you born?
El Paso, Texas.
Okay. So although originally indicted as a false statement on alcohol, I guess 2 counts of false statement on alcohol beverage license, I understand that the plea is to a lesser included, is it a lesser included, is it a class A, Mr. Sutton, or is it under 1244?
Under 1244B.
Okay, okay. With class A, you are pleading to the attempted offense, which makes it a class A misdemeanor under the provisions of the Texas Penal Code. To both counts 1 and 2, sir, what is your plea? Guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
Are you making your pleas freely and voluntarily?
Yes.
I will find you are making your pleas freely and voluntarily. Mr. Sutton, would you summarize the evidence, please?
Your Honor, had we gone to trial, the evidence would have shown beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant acted on the day alleged in the indictment with specific intent to commit the offense, did an act amounting to more than mere preparation, and that tends but fails to affect the commission of that offense, felony. He attempted to make a false statement on an alcoholic beverage license by a partial writing on the form. At this time, Your Honor, we would move the introduction of State's Exhibits 1 and 2.
And Exhibit 2 is what, Mr. Sutton?
That would be the indictment, Your Honor.
Okay, has there been an agreement, or Mr. Gonzalez, have you reviewed the 3914 disclosure as well?
I have, Your Honor.
Okay, so I will have that admitted as part of the record as attached to the indictment. Any objection to 1 and 2, Mr. Gonzalez?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, so states 1 and 2 are admitted. What is the plea agreement?
It is a $4,000 fine, 2 years deferred adjudication, and 250 hours of community service.
Mr. Gonzalez, is that your understanding of the plea agreement?
Yes, Your Honor.
And Mr. Williams, is that your understanding as well?
Yes.
Understand that the plea agreement is not binding on the court. However, if I were to reject it, I would allow you to withdraw your plea. If I follow the plea agreement, you may not appeal this case except on matters raised by written motion and ruled on before trial or by permission of the court. The next document I'm going to ask you about is the one-page document entitled the Trial Court Certification of Your Right to Appeal. It is a document that explains your appeal rights. Because this is a plea bargained or negotiated case, you do not have an automatic right of appeal. Mr. Williams, do you recall reviewing that document with your attorney and signing it?
Yes.
Finally, the last document, the motion for deferred adjudication. Mr. Williams, did you review and sign that document as well?
Yes.
Mr. Gonzalez, have you explained to your client both the benefits and detriments of deferred adjudication?
I did, Your Honor.
Mr. Williams, do you understand that if you violate a condition of deferred adjudication, the court can proceed to sentence you up to the full range of punishment for this offense? Do you understand that?
Yes.
And are you asking the court to grant you deferred adjudication?
Yes.
I will find there is sufficient evidence to substantiate a finding of guilt. However, I will not enter a finding of guilt at this time and instead defer further proceedings and place you on community supervision pursuant to the plea agreement for a period of, I have it down, I think you said 2 years, Mr. Sutton. I had it down 24 months, whatever is on the plea papers. For a period of 24 months, that will be also under 1244B of the Texas Penal Code. There is a $4,000 fine and 250 hours of community service. Yes, Ms. Nieto, it's as to both counts 1 and 2. Is there anything further, Mr. Gonzalez and Mr. Sutton?
No, Your Honor.
I just want to advise the court that the client does work in restaurant bar industry in reference to any kind of curfew and so forth.
So for probation, Ms. Pineda, if you're handling this one, so I'm, in terms of the terms, I don't see a need for a curfew. To me, it's just going to be the reporting, the community service, the fine. Curfew is not a concern for me.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, anything else, Mr. Gonzalez?
No, Your Honor, he's going to be tendering the $4,000 fine today too, I believe.
Great, okay. All righty.
Your Honor,
Well,
if I may ask, because what Mr. Gonzalez did mention, will it be okay with the court for me to put on the conditions that he's allowed to work at a bar establishment?
yes,
Thank you.
thank you. Anything else, Mr. Williams, after you speak with probation, if there's anything else that you think might become problematic, rather than not be in compliance with the terms and conditions, talk to probation and they'll let me know if there's some other things that we need to tweak here. Okay. All righty. Anything else, Mr. Gonzalez or Mr. Sutton?
No, Your Honor.
No, Your Honor.
All right. Good luck to you, Mr. Williams.
Thank you.
Carla, if there's anything else, just let me know. We'll look at those.
May I be excused, Your Honor?
You may. Thank
Thank
you. And please enter if we have Mr. Harris.
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you. Hi, Mr. Harris. This is Judge Bettis. How are you?
I'm doing good. How about yourself?
Great. I can hear you just fine. We're getting ready to start your plea. You ready to go?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, let's get started. I'll call them, calling cause numbers 2021-0D03226 and 2022-0D00133, State of Texas versus Angel Harris. May I have announcements, please?
Rolla King for the state of Texas.
Cesar Lozano on behalf of Mr. Harris. Ready to proceed, Your Honor?
Mr. Lozano, do you see your client appearing from the police center?
I do, Your Honor.
Okay, Mr. Harris, we're gonna get started. Both of these cases are set for pleas today, so I'm gonna be asking you questions about documents, one set for each case. So I need to swear you in. Would you raise your right hand, please? Sir, do you swear or affirm that any testimony you provide will be the truth and the whole truth?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. You can put your hand down. Sir, would you state your name for the record as well as your date of birth?
Angel Anthony Harris, 06/24/2000.
Beautiful. As I mentioned, we're going to ask questions about documents and other things with regard to your plea. First of all, State's Exhibit number 1, you should have reviewed with your attorney. Within that document, you're guaranteed certain rights, including the right to remain silent, the right to trial by jury, the right to counsel, the right to confront and cross-examine witnesses, and the right to call witnesses on your behalf and in your defense. Mr. Harris, do you recall reviewing State Exhibits number 1 with your attorney and signing those documents?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
And did you understand everything contained within the document?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Lozano, have you had more than 10 days to prepare defenses in these cases?
Yes, Your Honor.
And did you explain the plea papers to your client?
I did.
Do you believe he has understood the admonishments, rights, and consequences of giving up these rights by entering his plea today?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Harris, are you satisfied with your attorney's representation of you?
Yes, definitely.
Mr. Lozano, do you have any reason to believe your client is not presently competent to enter a plea?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Harris, have you ever been found incompetent by any court?
What is the meaning of incompetent?
Has a judge or a doctor ever decided that you did not have the mental capacity to handle your personal affairs or anything like that?
No, ma'am.
Have you ever been examined by a doctor or psychiatrist who has found you mentally ill?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so based on your testimony, your attorney's representations, and my observations of you, I'm going to find that you are competent to enter your plea today. So are you a U.S. citizen?
Yes, ma'am.
Where were you born?
Here in El Paso?
El Paso, Texas?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so in cause number 2022 0D00133, the offense is possession of a controlled substance in penalty group 1 in an amount less than 1 gram, which is a state jail felony. To that charge, sir, what is your plea? Guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
And in 2021 0D03226, manufacture, delivery of a controlled substance in penalty group 1 in an amount between 4 and 200 grams. To that charge, sir, what is your plea? Guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
Are you making each of these pleas freely and voluntarily?
Yes.
I will find you are making your pleas freely and voluntarily. Ms. King, would you summarize the evidence, please?
Yes, Your Honor. Were the state to proceed to trial on the indictment, the state would have proven each and every element the offense is charged. Manufacturing or delivery of controlled substance in penalty group 1 between 4 grams and less than 200 grams in cause number 2021 0D03226, and possession of controlled substance in penalty group 1 less than 1 gram in cause number 2022 0D00133 beyond a reasonable doubt. Judge, the defendant is pleading to 5 years of deferred adult probation and other terms and conditions stated on the state's plea paperwork. And at this time, the state moves to admit Exhibit 1 as the state's plea paperwork, Exhibit 2, Article 3914 disclosures, and Exhibit 3 is the indictment.
Objection.
Without objection, states 1, 2, and 3 is admitted. And Mr. Lozano, is that your understanding of the plea agreement?
It is, Your Honor.
Mr. Harris, is that your understanding as well?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, understand that the plea agreement is not binding on the court. However, if I were to reject it, I would allow you to withdraw your pleas. If I follow the plea agreement, you may not appeal these cases except on matters raised by written motion and ruled on before trial or by permission of the court. The next document I'm going to ask you about is the one-page document entitled The Trial Court Certification of Your Right to Appeal. It is a document that explains your appeal rights. Because this is a plea, bargained, or negotiated case, negotiated cases, you do not have an automatic right of appeal. Mr. Harris, do you recall reviewing the trial court certification with your attorney and signing those documents?
Yes, ma'am.
They were signed by your attorney and signed by the court as well. Finally, the motion for deferred adjudication. Do you recall reviewing, Mr. Harris, and signing the motion for deferred adjudication?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Lozano, have you explained to your client both the benefits and detriments of deferred adjudication?
I did, Your Honor.
Mr. Harris, do you understand that if you violate a condition of deferred adjudication, the court can proceed to sentence you up to the full range of punishment for each of these offenses? Do you understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
And are you asking the court to grant you deferred adjudication?
Yes, ma'am, I am.
I will find as to each case there is sufficient evidence to substantiate findings of guilt. However, I will not enter findings of guilt at this time. Instead, I will defer further proceedings and place you on community supervision for a period of 5 years. There will be a $4,000 fine, 200 hours of community service, screen for TAP, drug offender education class, urine and breath analysis, curfew. These cases will run concurrent with one another. Is there anything further, Ms. King or Mr. Lozano?
Nothing further from the state, Your Honor.
Nothing for the defense, Your Honor.
Good luck to you, Mr. Harris.